down the divisions for you. We're just happy that MLB is back. We're happy that sports are back. We're just kicking this thing off the way that it's going to kind of go from here on out. We're going to be 100 miles an hour with content, putting you guys in the best possible positions to take down tournaments and take down money in DFS, in your annual leagues. It's draft season. You've got all kinds of stuff going on, and we've got a ton of content for everything. Right now, currently on the site, there's PGA articles up and a podcast for the 3M Open. We've got NASCAR this Sunday. MLB kicks off tomorrow with a 2-game slate, then a full slate on Friday, and we're kind of right into it with NBA coming back next week as well. So without further ado, what's up, man?
Nothing. I couldn't have said it better. I'm so excited for baseball. I hope I don't sound like I'm contradicting myself, because I've told several people where, I was all in on baseball and even hockey where everything was going so well. And then I lost interest in like 2 or 3 days when all this COVID stuff hit, and they canceled baseball or they suspended it. And I was kind of bummed out in the beginning of the spring and in the summer because there was no baseball. And now, we're a few days away, and that excitement is like times 10. I'm on fire for it now.
It's funny how that works, because I feel like Steph was feeling the same way, right? Like he was like, okay, yeah, it's back. And then you kind of catch the fever, right? And you watch some exhibition games, and it's like, hey, baseball's back, man. Let's get into it. So we're going to break down the divisions for you and kind of give you guys – we did a little bit of it yesterday. I think we talked about the White Sox a little bit. But we're going to kind of go division by division and kind of break down, where we think things are going to end up, who are some guys you should be looking at. Chris has got some MVP predictions. We'll maybe even get into some Cy Young predictions, etc. But we're just going to sit here. We're going to chop it up, talk baseball, and kind of go over each team in each division. So where do you want to start? You pick a division, and we'll start there.
Yeah, let's just go down. We'll start in the AL East. We'll go right down AL, and we'll cap that off, and then we'll get right into the NL, if you don't mind.
And I mean, look, if we're going to start on the AL East, like you used the phrase yesterday, low-hanging fruit. The Yankees are the low-hanging fruit. This is by far the team to beat in the AL East. They've got a ton of talent on this roster. You acquire a Garrett Cole. You've got James Paxton, who's looking like he's healthy. He's the quote that was from Paxton yesterday was, the only thing he's not real comfortable yet with is he doesn't feel like he's as flexible as he was, and his landing spot is off a little bit, but his velocity and movement has been there. And, this team's got pitching. They've got hitting. I think that with the Mookie Betts news today, with, everybody kind of remembering after this break that Mookie Betts is on the Dodgers, I think the Dodgers probably are a little bit more popular, or maybe a little lower hanging fruit than the Yankees are, if that makes any sense. I feel like the Yankees are getting overlooked a little bit. But look, you've got, and we just talked about this, Steph and I did in our On Deck video, DJ LeMahieu to me is like the cog in the wheel for this Yankees team. He proved last year that his success in Major League Baseball is not dependent on Coors Field. He's a leadoff hitter in a stacked lineup, and he's going to get pitches to hit all season long, just like he did last year. It's not a guy you want to put on base and start the bottom of the first inning with a runner on first and having to get in the stretch and then get into some of the, the Gio Ursulas or the Giancarlo Stantons or Miguel Andujar or Gleyber Torres, Aaron Judge. This lineup just goes on and on. So, I think that you can – I didn't even mention Gary Sanchez yet, but I think that LeMahieu is a guy to me on this Yankees team that's the low-hanging fruit, that they're the clear-cut odds-on favorite to win this. And I look for DJ LeMahieu as a guy that is going to have I think he can have a monster year. I think this guy can possibly chase a batting title. I know it's a bold prediction, but I just think that with that lineup behind him, he's going to get pitches to hit. He's definitely going to get on base. Could be 100, if it's a 162-game season, you'd be looking at a guy that probably scores 100 runs this year. So, to me, that's the low-hanging fruit. I stole it out first. You can go ahead and add whatever you want on top of it, or somebody else in the division.
Sure, absolutely. And I'm a big DJ LeMahieu guy. I have the Rockies hat. He went to New York last year in a seasonal, actually in a baseball in a dynasty league. I traded what was his name? Tommy La Stella in LA straight up for DJ LeMahieu. It was like one of the best trades I've ever made. But looking at DJ now, he missed the first couple of weeks of camp because he tested positive for COVID, if you remember correctly. But it looks like he's optimistic about playing opening day. If that's the case,
He's already played.
Yeah, he's looking to play back-to-back games. Optimistic to get in the lineup. But as it stands now on the DFS sites, there's still the red box around him, IL, not injury related. It's a COVID thing. I fully expect him to play. He's not as young as we think he is. He's 32 years old, but if he's playing, he's going to be in my lineups. So you said Yankees, low hanging fruit. There's nothing I can say to go against you, and I'm picking the Yankees. But the Tampa Bay, the Rays, they are interesting to me given the fact that it's a shortened season. We all know that they're more of the creative teams in baseball with their lineups and the money they don't spend. Yet they made a push last season. They made it in, if I remember correctly. But I wouldn't count out the Tampa Bay this season. And then you have the Red Sox, Baltimore. They're not going to do much. I know we're talking this season, but I have my eyes on the future, and that would be Toronto, which, as it stands now, I just read that they wanted to play in Buffalo. Buffalo told them no. They wanted to play in Pittsburgh. Pittsburgh just told them no about 20 minutes ago. So, not knowing anybody in the franchise, I shot him a quick message on Twitter. Hey, why don't you come play your seasonal games in Detroit? We'd love to have you. So, hoping to hear back. That would be great to, have another professional team in the city for a couple months. I find that to be exciting. So it's the Yankees all day in the AL Central. I also have my eyes on Tampa Bay this coming season.
I mean, you want to talk about the White Sox like we did yesterday, right? There's a lot of young talent on that Blue Jays team with Vladimir Guerrero and Calvin Biggio. Biggio, 16 home runs and 14 stolen bases last year. Let's talk about Bo Bichette. He hit 311 and 200 and 196 at bats. There's some new faces there. Let's not forget that they made, they went out and got a Tanner Roark. If I'm correct, they just paid $80 million for Hyun-Jin Ryu, and Ryu probably the biggest star to come. We've got KBO going on right now. Ryu probably the biggest star to ever come out of Korea. This guy can pitch, man. I thought that this was a move that solidified this young team and getting a veteran pitcher who can go out every 5 days and give you a quality start. Ryu is that guy. Tanner Roark's an innings eater. They've got Chase Anderson. So I think that's kind of the one thing for Toronto to me that is the gap between them and being able to really pursue the Yankees. And I think that may finish, in my opinion, that may put them kind of in the third spot, because I do think that Tampa Bay is a team that I'm big on. They do lose Tommy Pham, but they do have some pitching. They've got a couple of really good young pitchers. You've still got Charlie Morton. You've still got Blake Snell. You've got Tyler Glasnow. So they've got the pitching part of it, and they did add a couple of bats as well in that lineup too. So, I think for me, I think it's Yankees 1. I think it's Tampa Bay 2, Toronto 3. Boston is the team that is just, the Orioles also, is Boston going to be as bad as the Orioles? Is that really going to happen this year?
I highly doubt that because Boston's just that heavyweight organization, and they just don't have seasons like that. Not in this day and age, And when it comes to Baltimore, I feel like they've been in that like always rebuilding kind of state. But they too have some young prospects that I'm personally excited about for seasonal fantasy baseball, which I'm in that weird frame of mind or that weird camp where I firmly believe that fantasy baseball correlates with actual real life baseball. They're one and the same to me, And I've had conversations, I wouldn't say arguments, but conversations with people that say you can't. The two of them don't relate, but I'm hard pressed to say how don't they? Baltimore has a few young kids that I'm excited for. So I don't think that they pass up Boston this year, but at a certain date and time in the near future, they will.
It's hard for me to get excited about Boston with the subtraction of Mookie Betts for one. Chris Sale's not there with Tommy John surgery. Eduardo Rodriguez, he's recovering from coronavirus. We don't know if he'll opt out. We kind of don't know what Rodriguez's future is going to be. Nathan Eovaldi does not look like himself at all. At least last year he didn't. He's going to look to rebound. So for me, I mean, pitching's the big question. Can they hit? They could probably still hit, especially at home with that small park too. So, we'll have to see. But that. You got a prediction on how you think it'll finish, or are you somewhat in agreement with me that it's Yankees, Tampa Bay, Toronto?
Yeah, Yankees, Tampa, Toronto, Boston, and then Baltimore in the basement of.
Let's move on to your division, man. Let's move on to the AL Central, and let's talk. I mean, we can start with the White Sox if you like. I know this is a team with a lot of prospects on it that you like, especially one in particular.
Yeah, absolutely. I love there's like 15 I could name. Andrew Vaughn is the big one. If this was a regular season, like I said yesterday with Steph, there's no way we would see a kid like that. He's young. He was just drafted last season, but he's already into the top 10 of the 100 ranked prospects. And I'm not talking my rankings. I'm talking about minor league rankings, like the head honchos that rank stuff like that. So I love the combination of Juan Moncada, Eloy Jimenez, Luis Robert, and then why wouldn't the White Sox let Andrew Vaughn get a couple major league at-bats this season? I can't say it enough. I wrote in my article that I published today about tomorrow's set of games where we're going to see it's going to be an odd season as far as lineups are concerned, starting rotations are concerned. So we're going to have to be on the ball with, our daily stuff. But when it comes to seasonal and real life stuff, I don't think there's going to be certain teams that won't hesitate to get their young prospects in, if not just for like a little mini weekend series here at the end of the month or in the middle of August, just to get them some ABs. And as I've also said, certain teams like Baltimore or a team like Chicago, they might treat it like a minor, like it's still spring training. So there's no harm, no pun intended, no foul here to let some of these kids get in there. And that's what excites me the most. We haven't heard anything about, unless you have, and maybe you can correct me after I say this, Jeremy, but I don't know if any service time is going to be interrupted, because that's the biggest rule about not having kids come up, because the teams, they gain an extra year of service time with their young players. So if there's no service time issues, why not let the kids play? There's nothing to lose, everything to be gained.
So I may be wrong on this, but I believe that the call-ups in October, or the September call-ups, that doesn't count as service time. And I want to say that there's a certain period, a certain amount of games you have to play in order to get that year. And the reason we're talking about it, for those of you guys who don't understand, a team basically owns you and your rights for the first 6 years, and that's MLB service time. You have to have 6 years of MLB service time before you can qualify for arbitration. So that's a big deal, and that's why Chris is bringing that up, because teams will hold on to prospects, and because they don't want to lose the negotiating rights or the right to own them for a 6-year period of time, so they can kind of put a window together. One of the best teams to do that was Kansas City when they went on their World Series run and were in 2 World Series, and I think it was a 3-year period of time, right? I mean, they put all of those guys, prospects, together at one time, and then you saw what happened. They couldn't keep it together because they're a small market club. So that's the reason why it's important. I don't know if they're getting credit for the service time this year. I do know that if a player's opted out, they are still getting paid for their full salary. So I don't know, what that's going to be. I can look that up and we can revisit that if you'd like. But to kind of finish off what you're saying, on top of service time, this is a division to me that has outside of maybe the Dodgers, because the Dodgers have, and we'll get to the Dodgers in a bit, but outside of having a stacked outfield like the Dodgers have, some of these teams that have a lot of young prospects, like the Chicago White Sox, are they going to make moves? Because typically an MLB season starts at the end of March, beginning of April, and the trade deadline is July 31st. Here, we're starting the season on July the 24th, and August 31st is the trade deadline. So just over 30 days, and there's going to be a trade deadline. How many guys are – and here's the other thing. This is very important. If you get a 60-man roster, if you move a player down, like a Gavin Lux, who we've talked about earlier today, right?
Mm-hmm.
Gavin Lux is going to go to their minor league facility. There is no minor league baseball. They're going to play inter-squad games against each other, and they're basically playing against nobody, right? They're just practicing. Yeah. You're not getting quality at-bats against other potential major leaguers or guys who have played in the big leagues before. So
I don't like
how much movement are we going to see? I think we're going to see a lot, especially on a team like Chicago.
Absolutely. I forgot to mention Michael Kopech, but he opted out. He had Tommy John surgery, the tall right-handed pitcher, soon to be a stud. And then I forgot one of my favorite overall prospects, their second baseman, Nick Matagral, who's an absolute on-base machine, batting average guy. He's going to push for batting titles in the future, and there's not even a question about that. That's not my opinion. That's a fact. That's what he does. He gets on base, and he hits 300 plus in his sleep. So Luis Roberts, Andrew Vaughn, Matagral, and the Kopech. So long-term prospects for the White Sox. The future is very bright in Chicago this season.
Do you like anybody else? I mean, look, it's no secret you're in Detroit. Do you like anything that can Detroit put? It's a 60-game sprint, right? Can Detroit put something together? You know, you look at clearly Cleveland. I think you used the phrase yesterday. Their window closed. Francisco Lindor becomes an interesting piece. Is he going to be moved? What's going to happen? I think they've got a short period of time to figure it out. Josh Donaldson is now a part of, the bomb squad, if you will, in Minnesota. But can Kansas City or Detroit do something? Jorge Soler, a really, really nice piece. They've got some young talent, with the Alberto Mondesi, Jorge Soler, Hunter Dozier, really good hitter. They lack pitching. Spencer Turnbull is not the greatest pitcher in the world. He shows he can eat innings. Daniel Norris, we're waiting for him to kind of break out. Michael Fulmer comes back from Tommy John surgery. Miguel Cabrera is old. Can they put something together?
I firmly believe that, and before I get laughed at, I believe that same prospect across the league. As you've said, we've said it a million times, people might get sick of it. This is a sprint. It's only 60 games. It's not that long 162-game season, so anything can happen. But in terms of the Central here, in which you've asked me, Cleveland their window is done. They have nothing on the farm as far as prospects are concerned. And Brantley's gone, Carrasco, Kipnis, Kluber. Really, all they have that I find interesting is Francisco Lindor, a top 10 talent overall in the league. And I wouldn't be shocked if they traded him this season in that short 30-day window, as you've said, just to kind of retool. He's their golden goose there in Cleveland now. And they literally, if you're looking at prospects list, they have nobody. They have Nolan Jones and Tyler Freeman. Jones is ranked 42 overall. Freeman is like 96. So their farm system is non-existent. And when you move on to a team like the Royals, they do this every few years. They won a World Series not too long. Well, it was long ago, but Bobby Witt, he's their young shortstop, 10th overall. Brady Singer, right-handed pitcher. Daniel Lynch, left-handed pitcher. The Royals, they didn't have any top 100 prospects for 2 straight years, and then this year, it's kind of starting to come together for them. So I don't think Cleveland or Kansas City is going to push Minnesota or even the White Sox anytime soon. But when it comes to Detroit, they've made some horrible decisions. Well, at the time they weren't horrible decisions, but they went all in for maybe 3 or 4 years when Mr. Ilitch was still alive, spending a ton of money trying to win a World Series, and it didn't happen. And the whole city was just absolutely deflated because of it. And look what's happened. They've been at the bottom of the rankings for so long, and I think their time is coming. Maybe, hopefully you agree with me. I firmly believe that the start of a good team is your pitching, is your solid pitching. The other parts will come, and the Tigers are well on their way, so much so that they didn't decide to draft pitching number one overall this season. They took the kid from Arizona State, Spencer Torkelson, who put on an absolute smoke show at Comerica about a week or two ago, just hitting bombs into left field, right field. You got Riley Green right there behind him, 31th ranked overall prospect. And then you got the studs, Mize and Manning. Mize is, everybody's considering him the next savior here in Detroit as far as pitching is concerned. And when you dig into it, Matt Manning is no slouch himself, right-handed pitcher. And then a guy that came out of nowhere in their farm system, Tariq Skubal, he's a left-handed pitcher. So again, I wouldn't say a lot, but there are plenty of question marks as far as the Tigers are concerned. And I hate to keep saying this and harping on it. I firmly do believe a lot of these kids, they're going to get their chance this season. I mean, even before this COVID hit and they only had a 60-game schedule, I believe that Casey Mize was going to make his major league debut this season anyways. So what better time than here? What better time than now, as John Cena's theme music would say, right? So the Tigers are interesting. I'm excited. First time I've been excited about the Tigers in quite some time. A team like Tampa Bay or a team like the Braves in their minor league system and what the White Sox are doing now, I've grown very envious of what they've done and how they've built their farm system, from the ground up to become powerhouse teams. So I'm not saying the Tigers are going to do that. I'm going to say that I believe that they are well on their way to establishing that sort of dominance in the division for years to come, given their stud pitching prospects.
And I'm assuming that stud pitching prospect starts with Casey Mize.
Absolutely correct. I mean, let me go off the walls for a second. Jordan Zimmerman is one of, if not the worst contract I've ever seen in my life. Maybe it's just because I'm in Detroit and he's here in Detroit. They gave him so much money. The guy hasn't done dick, and now he's strained his forearm, and he's not going to be playing anytime soon, and yet they're paying him. I can compare it to, on our same team, Miguel Cabrera, who arguably is one of the best hitters of all time in our generation, without a doubt, like the Albert Pujols of the world, right? So Miggy's contract was all backloaded. Anybody with a brain saw this coming. They were, as I said 5 or 10 minutes ago, Mr. Ilitch threw all this money at all these guys to go win a World Series, and it didn't happen. And what are we left with now? Miggy's making, I believe, $28 million a year, and he's in his mid to late 30s, and he's been fighting injury bug, and he's a shell of himself. And I think, again, this isn't a homer thing here. This is a baseball fan thing, what I'm about to say, where a shortened season benefits a guy like Miggy. He has the talent that he has in his pinky is more than I'll ever have in 10 lifetimes. So a shortened season, he doesn't need all that pageantry and the hoopla of spring training games. You can put him in the box and he can hit a 90-mile-an-hour fastball into the fifth row in left field. So a shortened season helps a guy like him. He's been rested for, probably coming up on a year now. So we're all crossing our fingers. We all love Miggy Cabrera in Detroit, and he's loved across the baseball organization, so he can do no wrong. He's carried the franchise for how long? So it's time for him to take a back seat and just play to the best of his ability, which is pretty damn good.
Couple of quick things. Finish up the Tigers here, but Cameron Maybin and Jonathan Scope now on that roster. With the White Sox, a big deal to me that with all these prospects that are out there, and the guy just got placed on the injured list, so he's going to be out for the next 10 days. Hopefully that's it. But Nomar Mazara's got a lot of upside and a lot of power in that bat. We've seen that in what he did in Texas. Another guy that you add to that lineup. I guess the last thing I'll say with Detroit, and we'll clear this division, is, to me, if Moore comes back and he can pitch at somewhat close to the level he pitched at 2 years ago, I think Detroit can make some noise. I really do. You're going to need the veterans like a Scope to come through. You're going to need Cameron Maybin to hit 260, 270. And then you're going to, I think last year the big problem with Detroit and really over the last couple of years is they haven't put Miguel Cabrera. For one, I don't think the guy's been healthy. I just think that he's been hurt. And I think that this extra 3 months, which I've said over and over again in the last 24 hours, is these guys have been playing baseball their entire life. And once you get to, 16 years old or 17 years old and you're a baseball player, you're playing year round. You're training year round. You're hitting year round. Baseball is a sport that, if you can slide into second base or slide into home plate and have a huge bruise and raspberry on your right knee and on your ass cheek. And that's not going away because tomorrow night you're going to go out and you're going to slide to second base and you're going to open it right back up again. And it's just the sport of nagging injuries. And it's really hard to get healthy. And these guys play this sport year round. And this is probably the first time since some of these veteran guys have been 17 years old, 16 years old, that they've had a break like this where they can not play baseball and just get healthy, get in shape. So, I think Miguel Cabrera can have a breakout year if they can get a Jonathan Scope on base and get some of these younger guys like you've talked about on base in front of them. Then it creates different situations. Move on to the AL West. I think.
May I have just one moment?
Absolutely.
A signing the Tigers made that no one has talked about. First baseman C.J. Cron. This guy in a full season, he can hit the
platoon player.
He can hit the quietest 30-run home runs in a season. So again, pairing him up with the signing of Jonathan Scope. Again, who knows what's going to happen? And then real quick, I love the farm system of the Minnesota Twins. Very interesting. The Twins are going to be good for a long time. They already have a wild starting roster, and then when you add in what they have coming up the pipe, they're going to be leaders of this. It's going to be Minnesota and Chicago back and forth for quite some time here in the Central.
I'm going to just say one more thing. The thing to me that, first of all, I love the prospects for the White Sox, right?
Absolutely.
I think they've done a really good job. We talked about this yesterday. You can go back to the Adam Eaton and Todd Frazier deals. Those were 4 years ago in 2016. This is exactly what they tried to put themselves in a position to do. Chris Sale was another guy that was on that roster that departed as well. They got prospects. They put something together. It's been a 4-year process, and now they're going to have the next 4 to 6 years to try to put something together and go on a run. This is the beginning of it, and we're excited about it, obviously. But adding a Nomar Mazar to that, having the young pitching prospects they already have, and with the Royals, they drafted 2 of the best pitchers in the draft in the last couple of years. They've got really good pitching prospects as well. So it's a good division. We'll move on. AL West, we've got a new ballpark in Texas. We've got all kinds of questions around the Houston Astros. As far as, I think Houston got bailed out here with the no charging the mound rule and some of the rules baseball put in for social distancing, like you can't argue with an umpire unless you stay within a 6-foot circle. There's an unsportsmanlike conduct penalty now for baseball. Never in the history of the game has there been an unsportsmanlike conduct penalty. And the reason I'm bringing that up is because I think that these guys were going to get thrown at once or twice a series. They were going to get thrown at once or twice a series. They're not probably going to get thrown at now. This kind of bails them out. Or it just gives free reign to hit them because guys aren't going to charge the mound, right? Maybe they will. Maybe we'll see a fight. I don't know. But there's bigger repercussions for charging the mound than there is to just take your medicine and go to first base. So that's interesting. Houston's probably got to be the favorite. They got the most talent. But I think the Angels, that's the team that I like to talk about. I think the Angels, they've made some good moves. Obviously, you've got Anthony Rendon there now. Andrew Heaney and Julio Teheran. Ohtani comes back from Tommy John surgery. The Jock Peterson deal, that fell through. But they added some good pieces, the Angels did. They've got a new manager. Give me your thoughts on the AL West, and then I'll kind of follow up.
Yeah, absolutely. So Again, I'd look like a fool if I didn't mention that Houston is good. They have a very nice team, but that's been done. That's been said how many times so far by everybody on this earth.
They
I'm more excited.
they did what the White Sox they did exactly what the White Sox did 6 years ago, right? I mean, they're Houston laid the blueprint out and they had success with it.
I like the long-term outlook and even this season of the Oakland Athletics. I believe they're my pick to win the division this season over Houston, over Los Angeles, and that they have a very fine collection of arms in the farm system. Jesus Luzardo, AJ Puck. I love. People don't talk about catchers. It's just like a whatever position. I'm over the moon for Sean Murphy. I've drafted him across the board in any format that I can find him. And I love the fact that Oakland has a very balanced roster, and I think that's going to help them this season when there's so many question marks. We don't know how it's going to play out, and we don't know much about what's going to happen, and are they going to stop if X amount of people test positive, whatever. So to me, the balance that Oakland has in their lineup mixed with these young arms who are ready to play now. They don't need to sit in the minor leagues for 2 or 3 seasons. They're ready now. And I do believe that we see Puck and Luzardo this season to go with like Frankie Montas. I love what he can do this season. He was not shut down. He ran into a PED suspension. He was on pace for his best statistical career year, and I'm all in on Oakland this year in that division over Houston.
I think where for me you give the edge to Oakland over the Angels is let's talk about your corner outfielders for the Angels are Justin Upton and Brian Goodwin. I'll say this forever. You can watch an Angels game. You can watch 2 Angels games. You can watch 10 Angels games. Justin Upton cannot hit a slider. And he can't. He can't hit a slider. And I don't know why anybody throws him anything but a slider, but Justin Upton cannot hit the slider. That's the weakness in his game. He's an unbelievable baseball player. He's a great talent. But those are your 2 corner outfielders. You talked about C.J. Cron earlier, who that was a platoon player for the Angels. He would DH and he would play first base. Albert Pujols, as great as he was at one time, that's your starting first baseman. So those are kind of the holes that the Angels have. I think from a pitching standpoint, the Angels have good pitching. They've got good starting pitching. I think that they can make a push here. I think that the Angels and Astros are kind of going to have to challenge the A's. And to counter that, you look at, like you said, this collection of young talent that Oakland has. Mark Canha, Matt Olson, Laureano, Matt Chapman. And then, oh, by the way, Chris Davis didn't have a great year last year. The guy, he's a 40 home run guy, right? Yeah. So they've got a lot of pop in this lineup. They can definitely run the bases. I'm not sold on their pitching across the board. I think Sean Manaea and Frankie Montas are really exceptional young talents. I'm really high on Frankie Montas, and I have been. But Mike Fiers is a guy, to me, that can get lit up on any given night. Yeah, he throws a no-hitter last year. I just don't like the peripheral stats on Mike Fiers. I think that we may see some regression. I think he had a strong season last year and overperformed kind of what his ability is. But he's a guy who can go out and he can eat some innings up for you, and he can be, a 5th starter, I guess. But I think you're going to see some young arms for Oakland in this stretch of the 60-game sprint. But I love the Angels. I'm not going against you with the Athletics. I think that those are the differences between the two, and that's where Oakland gets the edge. But Mike Trout does reside in Los Angeles.
Absolutely. And real quick, if we rewind what you said not too long ago about Goodwin and Upton in the corner spots, I mean, help is on the way. Joe Adell and Brandon Marsh, they're their young kids in their farm system. Both play outfielders. So again, a guy like Joe Adell, he's a top 5, top 10 prospect. He's going to be on the roster day 1. He's going to be on the roster Friday. In the starting lineup, I don't know.
I think Brandon Marsh. I think he's close. I've watched him in their exhibition game since this restarted, and the guy's definitely a gap-to-gap hitter. He's going to be a big league player. What worries me with Marsh is just what I notice is he doesn't recognize changeup very well. And, you watch some at bats, and, watching a bat last night against why is the name going to against Kenley Jansen, who, oh, by the way, has put some weight on. Kenley Jansen lost, got a haircut, and he's put on a few pounds. But Marsh just, he smashes a fastball foul, and then Jansen throws 3 straight changeups for swing and a miss, swing and a miss, swing and a miss, go sit down, and didn't make an adjustment. And I know it's one at bat, but you would think that, if he was ready, there would have been an adjustment. He would have fouled the changeup off. So I'm not excited to see. I don't think he's that ready yet, I guess is what I'm saying. I think he's a little ways away from the at-bat standpoint, but God, he murdered AAA.
Real quick, before we move on, I'd be remiss if I didn't mention the Mariners. And before people rake me over the coals, they have one of the best collection of outfielders I think I've ever seen, with Jared Kelenic and then Julio Rodriguez. They have to be the best outfield prospect combination that it's escaping me. I'm getting speechless. Evan White, Logan Gilbert, right-handed pitcher, George Kirby, right-handed pitcher. Would it be wild, or would you agree with me if I told you the Mariners make more noise, not long-term, but they lap the Angels? They make more noise and make the playoffs quicker than the Angels do.
I would say that if you were going to make the same statement that help is on the way, I would say that's more probable in Seattle, because Dan Vogelback and Kyle Seager are not going to be able to carry that team. And what they have on their major league roster from a pitching standpoint is not good. Marco Gonzalez is really the only arm that you can talk about from a starting pitching standpoint in that rotation. So the help on the way part, I think that if there's a team that you're going to see utilize the 60-man roster and play more young guys than anybody else, I think it's Seattle. Could that end up being better for them in the long term? Yes. But on the flip side of that, the Angels have some pieces they can move, right? Yes, the Jock Peterson trade fell through. If young Jock was in that Angels lineup, I think that you've got a little bit different Angels team. I would prefer, Brian Goodwin, Jock Peterson, Mike Trout in that outfield, maybe over Upton, and Upton being your DH, because Goodwin is going to be a guy who gets on base. He can do little things for you. I just think the Angels can do more to make a bigger impact sooner, where the Mariners are more reliant on hitting on more of these prospects. They've got to hit on prospects. These guys are exciting young prospects, no doubt, but you've got to hit on them. They've got to come up and perform. So, long answer, help on the way, yes, very soon in Seattle. Outpacing the Angels. I just think the Angels got more money to spend, and I think Anthony Rendon with Mike Trout, and if they can go get another piece, they've got good pitching.
Fair enough, yeah, I agree.
So let's go to the NL East, and Bryce Harper looks like he's been in the gym, man. Bryce Harper, he looks like he's done nothing but take advantage of this COVID-19 quarantine. He looks thick, he looks in shape, he looks healthy. He's already had a ton of pop. And Philly is definitely, in my opinion, where you start in the NL East. It's a very, very, very deep division. I think any one of these teams has the ability. You could talk about the Mets. They've got pitching, and they've got some young guys. You could talk about the Braves and everything they've got there with Ronald Acuna and company, and they've got pitching. You could talk about the defending champs in the Washington Nationals, right? Yes, they've had some people depart, but they've still got a very formidable ball club with one of the best young prospects in baseball. In Soto. It's a stacked division, but I think you start with the most stacked team there, in my opinion. That's Philadelphia.
Well, I respectfully disagree, and to me, it's the Braves. and it's going to be the Braves in this division for a long, long time. Their lineup is just chalked with young kids, young studs. Acuna, and Albies at second base, and then look what they have coming up the pipe: Christian Pache, Drew Waters. So they are the benchmark as it stands right now for young pitching. Their minor league system was loaded. Some of those guys have come up. A few of them haven't panned out. But if I'm not mistaken, Max Fried is going to be their opening day starter, who was in their system just a few years ago. Not to mention Ian Anderson and Kyle Wright are still in the minors right now. So I agree. I don't want to say I agree. I respectfully disagree with you as far as Philly is going to be the runaway. You didn't say runaway division championship.
No, I just think that's where you start. I think that they've got the most stacked team. They've got arguably one of the top 2 or 3 baseball players as the face of the franchise. They've got some pitching. They've got a good bullpen. I just think that that's where it starts. I mean, the one thing I don't think we can disagree about here is I think this is the most stacked division in baseball. I think this is the toughest division. And like you talked about yesterday, with the bulk of these games going to be played in division, man, anything can happen here. Anybody can win this division because you've got a stacked division, a bunch of division games. And if you're talking about, hey, the Philadelphia Phillies play the Atlanta Braves, Philly wins 2 of 3. They turn around and they play a home and home, and Atlanta wins 2 of 3. You just pushed, and that was 6 division games, right? I mean, I think that's what this thing's going to look like.
I do believe that it's the most stacked division as well. If you look at the NL East right now, they have 20 of the top 100 ranked overall prospects. It's going to be fun to watch, and it's not like it's going to be from left field when I say this, but this division has my favorite collection of prospects in baseball right now, and it's not necessarily close, aside from like Chicago or Seattle. But what Miami has in their farm system is fantastic. The Mets, as you said, and then even in Philly, Alex Baum at third, he can play third and first base. Bryson Stott, he's a shortstop, really young kid. We're not going to see him this season, not at all. I mean, he won't be up until 2022, let's say. But even Spencer Howard, who I believe he'll play this season for Philly. And you made sense. I feel like you made me look stupid when you said if they play all those division games, then it's a wash. You just wasted six divisional games, let's say. So there's a lot of room here for a Mets team to take the division out of nowhere. 10 games down, or let's say 5 games down with 10 games left, and here they go. They win every game and they make it in. But Philly and Atlanta, I agree with you, but I believe, in my opinion, it's the Braves division this season and the next few seasons.
I think the team that I'm the least excited about in this division is the Nationals, right? Starlin Castro, Asdrubal Cabrera, and Wilmer Difo are not exciting adds to this team. They're not. Trey Turner obviously is the cornerstone guy. Juan Soto is the most talented player in that lineup.
Robles, Keyboom.
Yeah, I mean, but to me, this team is the least exciting to me in the division. The most exciting to me in the division is Miami. And you mentioned they've got a stacked farm system. They've got good pitching. You talk about Caleb Smith, Jordan Yamamoto, Jose Urena, Sandy Alcantara. I mean, they've got a good system. And then if you compare the adds the Marlins made from a veteran standpoint to kind of go around these prospects, they added 4 solid veterans. Jesus Aguilar, we've seen him in Milwaukee hit for power. Jonathan Villar is a good he's a good leadoff hitter. The guy can steal bases if he's healthy, right? He's a solid defensive player. Matt Joyce, we know, can hit for power. Corey Dickerson, we know, can hit for power. So to me, Miami, that's the team that I think is the wild card in the division. It's going to be what you do against Miami and what you do against the Mets. And the Mets, to me, I said this last year over and over again. their pitching staff, when you talk about really their big three, right? And you can go back even to the Dark Knight when he was there as well. They had 4 top pitchers there with Syndergaard, DeGrom, Steven Matz, and why can't I think of the guy, his name? I just remember they call him the Dark Knight. Why can't I think of his name?
Oh, yeah. He's a bum now.
He's a bum, right. My point to you is that pitching staff threw more sliders than any other pitching staff in baseball.
Matt Harvey?
Matt Harvey. There you go.
Matt Harvey, yeah.
So Noah Syndergaard, right, out a year after undergoing Tommy John surgery. Jacob deGrom had Tommy John surgery. And last year, Steven Matz had a ton of elbow issues, right? So I think that you added Rick Porcello and Michael Wacha to your roster, and those guys are 5th starters kind of at best, right? So to me, the Marlins are the team that, man, what you do again, they could be the spoiler of the division because let me ask you this. Is this a crazy scenario to throw out there? Could just over 500 win this division? Is it that competitive that a team goes 31-29 or, 30-30 or something like that and wins this division? Is it that competitive? I think it's that deep. It's that stacked.
I agree with you. Yes, absolutely. Like you said, there's of the 60 games, 40 or 42 of them are all going to be within the division, and rightfully so. So I could see a lot of splits, weekend series, 2-1, 1-2, 2-2, however it plays out. And it's going to be a lot of, it's just going to be weird and even across the board. So if any of these teams can just keep pace and then turn it on with 10 or 15 games left, I think this is one of, if not the only division that's decided on like the last series of the season before we head into the playoffs. And that's not even being wild to say that.
Yeah, I don't think it is either. So let's move on to the NL Central. To maybe the most boring division in the National League, right? I mean, the NL Central. St. Louis, they lose Ozuna. You've got the Cubs looking to get healthy. They've added a few pieces. The Reds, to me, seem to be the team that's probably the most exciting here in this division. Milwaukee, obviously, is probably the favorite. Pittsburgh has lost a little bit of its pieces, that they've had there. Your thoughts?
Yeah, I believe that Cincinnati wins the division this year. And again, it's boring. You have the Brewers. The Brewers have 0.0 goose egg prospects from the top 100. And if you look around elsewhere, the Cardinals have the 3 top 100 guys they have. Out of all 3 of them, Dylan Carlson is, if not my favorite prospect in all of baseball. As it stands now, he's ranked 17th. I've seen him. I believe I have him in the top 10 in my personal rankings. And you got Nolan Gorman, young stud third baseman, big kid, 47. And then another favorite of mine, Matthew Liberatore, left-handed pitcher, young kid. We're not going to see him this season. We're not going to see Gorman this season, but Dylan Carlson is probably going to be in their starting lineup come the start of the season. So the Pirates are the Pirates. Nothing special going on there. I don't want to disrespect them, but they're a long ways out of doing anything of prominence. So again, I firmly believe that Cincinnati and the Reds win this division this year. So shout out to David Reed. He's a contributor to our website. He's got an article coming out when this broadcast is done. So hang here. He's a Cincinnati guy, and I told him that it has nothing to do with me being friends with him. A team like, I've said this when it comes to football, sorry to go on a tangent or go off script a little bit, but there's certain teams in football that when they're winning and when they're better, it's just more fun to me, like the Cincinnati Bengals, right? Or the New York Jets. And when it comes to baseball, it's the same thing. And when Cincinnati is good, it just makes baseball more fun. Right? Or when for some reason, St. Louis and the Cubs too, they're all within the same division. But when Cincinnati is playing well, maybe it's that just being born and raised in Detroit, and the Tigers have always been crappy. The Lions, god awful for how long. So it's always, I don't want to say it comes from a point of like an underdog, but I like to see other teams and other cities who have always been down and out have success and it's more exciting than the same old same old. Oh, the Yankees won 100 games again this season. The Dodgers are in the World Series again. When the Patriots were making all them Super Bowls, people would willingly and knowingly say, well, the Patriots make the Super Bowl, I'm not even going to watch because it's boring. I mean, that's on them, but it just goes with my point of what I'm trying to say. When these down and out, with the teams with a history of not playing well are good, I find it more exciting, and the Reds are going to be good this season, and that's one of the 1,000 reasons why I'm excited for baseball.
I don't know that you can put, we talk about the East, and this is going to be, you could be trading series here. And when you talk about series, you talk about kind of the playoffs, rotations get shortened kind of to a 3-man rotation. I don't know that you can find in baseball, when you get to the third guy, there's a couple of these rosters that have question marks around them. On this one, it's certainly going to be Bauer. Can he find the magic again? But Bauer, Gray, and Castillo is one of the most formidable.
Absolutely.
It's probably top 3, right? You could say it's top 3, or at least in that conversation, 1, 2, or 3, somewhere in there. Those 3 starters at the top of your rotation could be an absolute powerhouse rotation. I think Votto is a big question mark. Votto hasn't been trending in the right direction, but they do have some help to put guys around him, which I'll transition that into Paul Goldschmidt with St. Louis. You mentioned some prospects. That's going to be the big question mark with St. Louis for me. Losing Ozuna, who hits behind and who hits in front of Paul Goldschmidt, and can anybody protect him? Because if you can just pitch around Paul Goldschmidt and kind of move through that lineup, it's not the most impressive lineup in the division. Milwaukee, you mentioned it when you talked about the White Sox. Another prospect, Milwaukee loses a catcher to the White Sox. They didn't really do anything to replace some of these guys they lost, like an Aguilar, who was kind of a platoon player. They've got Christian Yelich. When you got Christian Yelich, you can't count a team out. Pittsburgh, I think Pittsburgh will be okay. This is, to me, maybe the NL West is the only other division to where teams, it's kind of like the Pac-12 with football. The Pac-12 beats each other up. And this division in baseball, to me, with all these division games, is one of the year in and year out. St. Louis and Chicago beat each other up. Cincinnati and Chicago will beat each other up. I think that's lended a hand to Milwaukee's success in the past. But, those are the question marks for me, especially the Cubs have a good lineup, right? It goes back to the same thing. Who's going to pitch for this team? Anthony Rizzo is still good. Can Kyle Schwarber play defense in left field? Another big question mark there, right? Can Chris Bryant have a bounce-back year? We know Baez is still a stud. So, those are kind of the question marks for me in that division.
Well, just piggybacking off what you said about what Cincinnati's rotation, have you seen the video of Bauer's stuff in the last few days?
I have.
It's sickening. It's almost unhittable, the movement on his pitches. And then Luis Castillo, I have him as my favorite to win the NL Cy Young. Even before all this, we're talking rewind 3 or 4 months ago, he was my favorite to win the NL Cy Young. Sonny Gray, Wade Miley, he's so-so. He's an inning eater guy. I know you like to say that. Anthony DeSclafani, and then they added Mike Moustakas. He's a stud. He's been nothing but steady Eddie through his career. Nicholas Castellanos, and then Suarez. He hits bombs. He secretly and sneaky hit 49 last season, if I'm not mistaken. So to me, the division is the Reds. I'm always open and honest with you, Jeremy, and everybody who reads my content and everybody I interact with. I didn't even look at the other teams in the NL Central. It's the Reds for me, and it's like flashing lights, like the Reds win this division.
There's a couple of teams to me that, because there's going to be so many divisional games, right? You're only going to play so many home games, but if you're going to be a playoff team, you've got to have a winning record at home, and you've got to be at least 500 on the road. That's an 162 game season, right?
Yeah.
Well, we're talking about the Reds here, and we'll transition to the NL West and close it with this. You're playing a Great American Small Park with that lineup. You know, I mean, that to me as a transition to the NL West, the wild card to me in the NL West is going to be Colorado because of Coors Field, and it's the middle of the freaking summer, and it's going to be hot, and it's going to be at altitude, and you're talking about in a sprint, can a team get hot? You know, you don't have to be hot for the entire 60 games. We've talked before, you know, if the Dodgers get out to a 12-4 start in their first 16 games, it's over. Well, you know, if Colorado has a 10-game home stretch here and, you know, they win 9 of 10, that's a big deal too. And it's a big home field advantage of playing Colorado in the summertime. A lot of runs get scored there. Yes, other teams are going to come in there and they get to hit in the same conditions. Colorado does have some pieces. I don't think they're the favorite to win the division. The Dodgers are by far. And, you know, the biggest thing to me when you talk about the Dodgers is Mookie Betts added so much depth to that lineup and made it so much longer because of the fact that he eats pitches. I mean, Mookie Betts is very disciplined at the plate. There was a stat last night I was watching the game, and when he forces pitchers to throw him a ball and a fastball in the middle of the plate, a fastball down, he's hitting 300. A fastball middle up over the plate, he's hitting 500 on. That's insane, right? And when you have that kind of plate discipline and you're forcing pitchers to squeeze a zone and throw balls over the plate, the guy's hitting 500 on belt high fastballs, right? You would think like, oh, that's no big deal. Any major leaguer should do that. But he's leading that stat category by leaps and bounds. So you got a guy with over a 980 OPS in Betts. You got another guy in Muncy hitting in a 2-hole over a 980 OPS. And now a pitcher is 8 to 12 pitches into the game and the top of the first inning when if you're going to go 6 or 7, you want to be around that 10 to 12 pitch mark. You may have Betts and Muncy on first base like the other night against Arizona. And by the time you get to Bellinger, you're 25 pitches in and the bases are loaded and you give up a grand slam, right? So Betts makes this lineup so much longer and so much deeper, and it was already a crazy lineup with Corey Seager coming back. He's going to have a big impact. Bellinger, we know the player he is. Justin Turner, healthy. I mean, this lineup is stacked all the way through. I do think Clayton Kershaw, and people may think I sound like a moron saying this, but Clayton Kershaw last year threw a lot of curveballs. And when pitchers start figuring out that they don't have the velocity they had before, he's a 91, 92 guy. He reminds me a lot of what Matt Cain was with the Giants at the end of his career. Had a really hard time figuring out how to pitch to contact because he didn't have 96 to blow by you when you needed it. And when you don't throw, you know, it may not seem like a lot, but 96 to 91 on the fastball. And, you know, if you're throwing 96, your curveball is 87. You know, that's a big difference in change of velocity. And, you know, now if you go from 91 to 87, it's not too much of a difference in speed for guys to make an adjustment to. So Kershaw to me is a question mark, and that's kind of the question mark with the Dodgers as a whole. Is that pitching staff? We talked about the Blue Jays picking up Ryu. They've lost some guys. They do have some really good Dustin May, a really good young prospect there. Definitely the favorite to win a division. Do you like anybody but the Dodgers? I know you say Cincinnati's like a blinking red light. The Dodgers should be like a big blinking blue light, right?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, we can carve that in stone now. It's a done deal. But I don't believe for long. You know, if they don't win a World Series this year or next year, I think their window is all but over, just like I said about Cleveland, because you have San Diego, which is their cup runneth over with young talent. So much so, it's absolutely sickening. And they are Chicago's 1, San Diego's 1A to me as far as their prospects are concerned. Mackenzie Gore, big, tall, left-handed pitcher. If you look at his windup, his leg is, 25 feet in the air, it looks like. C.J. Abrams, talented shortstop they just drafted. Luis Patino, his stuff is sick, right-handed pitcher. Taylor Trammell, who came over from Cincinnati, I've always liked him. He just needs a chance. And normally we probably wouldn't see him until next season. I think they give him some playing time. And then obviously Fernando Tatis, one of the most, if not the most electric kid in baseball right now. So Dodgers, maybe not this year. No, absolutely not. No way this year. But they should start watching their back after this season is over. And in the future, San Diego is going to be an absolute monster of a franchise for quite some time.
I think that we talked about the trade deadline a little bit, and I think that the Dodgers are another team that's going to be extremely interesting as this first month goes by, because you talk about Jock Peterson still on this roster. You talk about A.J. Pollock still on this roster. They've got prospects like a Gavin Lux. So you've got Kiki Hernandez. What do you do with him? He's a serviceable player. They can put a package together to go get a pitcher, probably go get somebody's horse, right? I mean, and if they do that, I think that solidifies them for the rest of this season. It puts them over the top. It definitely could solidify them for a couple of more years. But you're right. San Diego is full of prospects. Arizona there's a really, really, for those of you who haven't seen this yet, a really, really sad story with Starling Marte. I don't know if you've seen this or not, but his wife, she got a foot infection and ended up being hospitalized. The infection got worse. She had a heart attack and died. 31 years old. The guy was done. He didn't want to play baseball anymore. And his new teammates, for lack of a better term, they went and got him. And they said, you need this. So I'm really rooting for this guy. Maybe not so much for the Diamondbacks, but I'm really rooting for Marte. The guy's got a ton of potential. He's had a ton of potential. He's a really good, young, talented player. His wife leaves him with I believe it's 3 kids. Just a sad, sad, sad story. But Arizona, they pick up Madison Bumgarner. They pick up Marte. They had Ketel Marte already that they picked up the year before. They've got a pretty decent lineup. Arizona does. I think that they're kind of in a fight to finish third in this division.
Aside from the Central, the AL Central, the NL West is probably my favorite division. I love Arizona, I love San Diego, and I love watching Colorado play. So I'm rooting for Marte in Arizona this season, very much so. He's a top-notch guy. There's never been. I mean, he had a suspension for PEDs, whatever. I don't. As a human being and as a man, I don't freak out and get upset with these guys like other people do. So all the best to him and Arizona as a whole.
I would be remiss if I didn't finish it up with my Giants, right? And I think that there's some good young players on this team. From a DFS standpoint, check out the video we did, MLB on Deck. It's on our website, dfscheatsheet.com. You can see it on YouTube as well. But for tomorrow, I actually like Johnny Cueto. I think Johnny Cueto, you talk about, there's a long list of guys, talk about John Smoltz, you talk about Steven Strasburg, you could talk about Venters, you can talk about, DeGrom, you can talk about Syndergaard, right? All these power pitchers that have had Tommy John surgery and have come back with equal or better velocity. Johnny Cueto pitched last year hurt when he tried, or 2 years ago when he tried to pitch. He tried to pitch hurt. And then went on the IL, tried to pitch again, and ended up having Tommy John surgery. Came back last year. He struck out 13 over 16 innings. I think Johnny Cueto has a bounce-back year. I think he's the bright spot for the Giants this year. And I think 2 out of the 5 nights a week that they play, they're going to have a chance to be competitive with Cueto on the hill. There's other players here. You talk about Joey Bart, right? I mean, is Buster Posey opts out? It opens a window here for the Joey Bart era to possibly start. Talented player with a lot of pop. And an interesting thing to know, too, about San Francisco, they moved the bullpens into center field. It's now a smaller ballpark. It's not as big as it was. Triples Alley is 10 feet shorter. The gaps are, I think, 12 feet shorter. So it's a smaller ballpark. And there's some guys that have a little bit of pop. Hunter Pence, he's got a new swing. They pick up Wilmer Flores. They've got young prospects like Dubon. But the problem for the Giants is going to be they've got Johnny Cueto. And that's really, from a pitching standpoint, all they've got. They're not going to be able to compete with the Dodgers because they can't slug it out with the Dodgers. They're not going to be able to compete with the Rockies because they can't slug it out with the Rockies. So, can they play small ball with San Diego? Probably. But San Diego, you talk about Tatis and Machado and some of these other prospects, they can hit for power too and they can slug it out. So the Giants will finish last in this division, barring some type of absolute miracle where a bunch of young guys get hot and they get into some of their pitching prospects, which they do have. You're a prospect guy. The Giants have some pitching prospects that are just not ready yet.
I'm excited for the outfield combo of Heliot Ramos and Hunter Bishop. They're about a year apart as far as development is concerned and who's going to come in when. But the Giants are coming off their worst 3-year stretch since 83 to 85, if I'm not mistaken. But yeah, they're doing things the right way. I mean, I don't know what more we could say given the fact that we're an hour in and one of the last teams we mentioned, in terms of building from the ground up, or they're doing it the right way with their farm system. But that's why baseball is so great to me. Aside from ice hockey, my favorite sport, is because this time of year, much like spring training in like March or April, every team's fan base, every city, everybody is just eternally optimistic. And I just can't wait
not
to
out
see.
here. I'll tell you that right now. Nobody's optimistic about the Giants, man. I think people are frustrated with Zadie because Joey Bart hasn't been put on the opening day roster. I think that the hiring of Gabe Kapler wasn't one that intrigued people. I liked it. I thought Gabe Kapler got a bad shake in Philadelphia. When you bring in a guy like Charlie Manuel and you say, here, Charlie Manuel's going to be your bench coach, and you let the guy do what the guy wants to do. Gabe Kapler seems to have a plan, but when you win 3 rings in 6 years and then you say, like you say, you have the worst 3-year stretch since 1983, well, that was 27 years ago. And that means that there's a whole demographic of Giants fans that have never seen them play as bad as they did in the last 3 years. So I would say frustration is what the fans in San Francisco, nobody's optimistic here.
That's a good question, though. Given the fact that San Francisco, what did they win? 3 or 4 championships in 5 years? Something along those lines?
3.
They won 3 in 5 years. I would take that any day of the week, even if you told me, well, they're going to be really bad, in the future for 3 seasons in a row. I would do that all day, and it wouldn't even be close, because that's the ebb and flow of professional sports and, much like hockey and baseball. So I would do that all day. So, San Francisco is a very storied franchise. And if nobody is excited for them,
the problem with San Francisco is that their front office has had a really rough 5 years. They haven't been able to acquire top players with all the money in the world. They haven't been able to acquire top cornerstone players to come in and hang their hat on. And I think that's where the blame is at for why they're so bad. Not that they're doing it the right way and they're rebuilding it and they've got prospects. When they went on their run, like you say, you'd give it up right now. Well, talk about the Carlos Beltran deal, right? Who'd they give up? They gave up the kid that pitched for the Mets. They made deals, a Hunter Pence deal, right? They gave up a bunch of their farm system to go get those 3 rings. And if you do that, you've got to rebuild it. The Dodgers did the same exact thing. You could go back and look at the Dodgers where they had, I think, 9 straight Rookie of the Years. Nothing came of that, right? But they had a great farm system, arguably one of the best farm systems in the history of baseball. They're the teams that went to Mexico. They have the first team to put a facility in the Dominican Republic. And they chased championships early in Kershaw's career and depleted their farm system. And they did it the right way. Look, now they're flush. Bellinger and Muncy and all of these guys that are coming up, right? So Derek May and all of these guys. So, yeah, I think that San Francisco is just, the frustration has been more so that, yeah, we'll take giving up the prospects now for the chance to compete. But the fan base, I think, is more frustrated that with all the money that they've had, at one point in time, I think they sold out 432 consecutive home games. They've got money, and they couldn't ever get anybody to come in.
Yeah. Well said.
So that's where we're at for a divisional preview. We will be here every single day providing you the best possible content we can for all of the MLB season, both for annual and daily fantasy needs. Chris breaks it down Make sure you check out the article up on the site right now. I believe he's got two articles up on the site right now. One of them's got 2 lineups in it for the Friday slate, 2 free lineups. Make sure you check that out. Promo code RESTART2020 works on the site now. Get the rest of the Restart, MLB and NBA, full VIP, all access, all the content, all the premium podcasts, complete access to the optimizer and all of the tools that go in that. Great stacking features, etc. for baseball for $99.99 for the rest of the season. We'll be back with another video tomorrow.